Well, let's start with the Chelsea news in the mail. Poch chewed up. Chelsea boss out after dinner with owner Bowley. He felt frustrated at lack of power. Blues eye Ipswich's McKenna. David Ornstein, come to you first. Kieran Gill reporting there that there was a frustration from Pochettino, whereas Carve Solokol reporting our end that it was pretty amicable and that Pochettino wasn't worried about having not enough influence in transfers. What's your take on it?
I think this has been coming for a while, Teddy, and that may be a surprise to some, but those of us within the industry that have been privy to some of the information around Chelsea, it suggests that it wasn't entirely happy on either side, and that's why there was going to be this end of season review a year into a 2-year contract that had an option to extend by 12 months. And despite results picking up, which did make it a more interesting conversation and perhaps slightly less predictable outcome, I think the direction of travel has been clear. And so if the club and the ownership and the sporting directors weren't seeing what they liked from Mauricio Pochettino, and by the looks of it, Mauricio Pochettino didn't necessarily like everything that he was seeing from them, then this is probably the best way to go. And it means Chelsea have another managerial change under the new ownership. And the new ownership will be desperate to, bring some consistency now, some stability, a long-term man in the hot seat, which they've said before, but they'll hope it's delivered with a clear style of play and identity and improve the injury situation and continue to recruit some of these great players. And I'm sure when they went into the Pochettino relationship, they would have seen him as being the long-term solution. But for a variety of reasons, it just hasn't worked out. And it leaves us in a fairly extraordinary situation. I think they'll be looking to make an appointment in days rather than weeks, is the word that's coming out from Stamford Bridge tonight. So it's a case of watch this space.
Interesting times. We'll get to successors in just a second, Mark. Let's consider the back page of The Sun. No more M-A-U-R again, the spelling. Chaos at Blues with McKenna in the running. Man United on alert to swoop and replace Eric Ten Hag. Mark, if we said that Chelsea was sixth at the start of the season, could you perhaps understand it? But given the sense of momentum, is it slightly perplexing? Is this a dangerous move from Chelsea?
A little bit. Look, I mean, this will be the fifth managerial appointment or the managerial change at Chelsea since the new owners came in less than 2 years ago. So you have to say, when Mauricio Pochettino came in last summer, Chelsea had finished 12th, I think, bottom half of the table, bought loads of players, and the squad needed to settle down. It was an imbalanced squad. It was a squad that needed a lot of time to kind of get in the right shape. And I think Pochettino overall has done that. I think, obviously, during the mid part of the season, he was really struggling, and they probably could have moved him on then, even after such a short space of time. But he's certainly turned things around in recent weeks. Obviously, the 5-0 defeat at Arsenal didn't help, but he's gone to a cup final, finished sixth, got him into Europe. You could really see some kind of pattern emerging at Chelsea, a bit of stability coming into play. Obviously, Cole Palmer's had a great season. I think Malo Gusto's had a good season as well. You just got the sense that a summer this year with maybe a couple of experienced players coming in would have helped Chelsea kick on to maybe even challenge for the title next year. But this is where the divergence comes, because the Chelsea owners want a different approach. They want, as we know, they want to bring in younger players. I think they just agreed to sign a player from Brazil this week for a 17-year-old. So that's where they want to go, young players. This team, this squad needs a couple more experienced players just to kind of help guide the young players along. And that's what Pochettino was probably looking for, to bridge the gap. And it meant that they were on two different paths. And if the owners and the managers are on different paths, it's not going to work, despite the fact he's got a great pedigree. Now, the problem that Chelsea have got right now is that this job will appeal to lots of up-and-coming coaches. It really will. There's so many coaches out there that will take Chelsea, despite the issues at play. But I don't see a manager coming in with the control that he would need to take the club to where they want to be. And that's the problem. It's almost like a catch-22. Chelsea want to go to a certain place, but they're not letting the manager do the job that he needs to do. So you have to wonder what the aspirations of Chelsea's owners are. If they don't think that Mauricio Pochettino's had a good season, getting them to sixth, they were never going to finish higher than sixth. They've definitely overachieved by finishing sixth. It makes you wonder what sort of club they are, what sort of team they are, what are their aspirations, because you have to give the manager time and space to develop a team, to develop players, to move players that aren't good enough, and to make the players that are there better. And he's just started doing that, and he's on the way out.
Alan Smith reporting in the Star. Out, David. Chelsea parting with Poch. What's your read on how attractive it would be for a prospective manager, David? In a sense, Mark's obviously saying that perhaps it will deter other managers. But could Chelsea's form and the young players be an attractive prospect too, the recent months?
Yeah, absolutely. Chelsea's an attractive proposition. People are saying Manchester United is a club that prospective managers won't want to join. I don't believe that at all. And in the case of Chelsea, the ownership, although it has been a bit of a tumultuous start, they've clearly got great ambition to bring Chelsea back to the level of competing for the biggest trophies. They want to be back in the Champions League and vying for that honour, as well as the Premier League and the domestic cups. They're building a squad of young and talented players that they believe will be befitting that level. And Mark sort of touched upon it there. It's all about the structure for these new owners, and they want the head coach to fit into that and be on the same page as them and very close to the sporting directors, Lawrence Stewart and Paul Winstanley, and the ownership in Clearlake Capital and Todd Bowley's group. And it's not too dissimilar to what we're seeing at somewhere like Liverpool, with the sort of technical directors and sporting directors and people building a model that just sees the head coach slot in. And I think there'll be many looking at it and saying, we can take it on. Even in the Abramovich era, which was hire and fire, they were never short of candidates to step into the role. And we're seeing tonight names like Kieran McKenna of Ipswich being linked, Thomas Frank of Brentford, Sebastian Hoeneß of Stuttgart. And, whether or not they end up, being dead in the frame, there will be plenty of managers, coaches who see this as a brilliant opportunity with a very talented squad, an ownership that's going to continue to invest and believe that they can be the person to get this right. I'm sure someone will eventually, whether or not it happens for the next person in. That's something we'll have to wait and see on.
Indeed, Chelsea's still attractive. Then David says, Mark, what about Pochettino? Is he attractive for his prospective clubs? Interesting piece. Jason Burt and Matt Law writing in the Telegraph. Jason Burt saying that stock has risen. United or Bayern could cash in. Do you think that in some ways this season has reflected well on Pochettino and in a way, the way it's ended as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think he did have a very difficult job. And as I said earlier on, he had a really difficult patch during mid-season and he could have lost his job then, but he did turn it around. So I think, let's be honest, Mauricio Pochettino is a manager with a good reputation, but he hasn't won a trophy in English football. He's been close a couple of times, but, he's come close with Tottenham. Is he a nearly man? Who knows? I mean, he's certainly got a charisma about him and he can find a player, but has he got that extra quality to take a team from being potential winners to winners? So I guess the biggest clubs will wonder about that. But at the outset, there's not a lot of coaches out at the moment that are convincing the big clubs. Bayern Munich are still struggling to find a coach. Man United may need a new coach in the next few weeks if Erik ten Hag doesn't survive. So, Pochettino was on a two-man shortlist in the end with Erik ten Hag at United and missed out for a different reason, for a variety of reasons. But I guess now that he's available, it does shake up the transfer market for managers this summer because, Bayern will look at the guy and think, well, he's managed PSG, he's managed a big club. Barcelona may become available soon as well because Xavi, his situation seems to be under threat as well. And obviously, I know that Poch played for Espanyol. He said in the past he wouldn't manage Barcelona. Maybe he might do if it came along. So, he's an attractive proposition because he's managed big clubs and managed big players. But his reputation isn't what it was 5 years ago when he was at Tottenham. So I guess he has rebuilt his reputation a bit, but I guess he's still got to convince everybody that he can be an absolute elite manager and win the Premier League, win the Champions League. But, maybe he was never going to do that at Chelsea because of the situation he was in.
David, let's wrap up quickly by asking a two-part question to you. Where you see Pochettino ended up and where you potentially see Chelsea going next. The Times headline, Pochettino leaves Chelsea, Argentinian departs after one season, a move that will put United on alert. Any chance that Pochettino swiftly replaces Ten Hag and wins the FA Cup and denies Chelsea a Europa League spot?
You give me all the easy questions. I think Manchester United have been heavily linked with him for some time before Ten Hag, like Mark says. He met with Ineos about the Nice job too, so there's a relationship there. And I'm sure that, now he's available, he will be in the thinking of clubs like Manchester United. And I'm sure, given the background, a club like Manchester United will hold some appeal to him. I'm not suggesting that it's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see what happens on Erik ten Hag, of course. But clearly it's one to watch because they're the sort of club and Sorry, we've got phones ringing about this story as we speak. The nature of this industry. So, yeah, that's inevitably one you've got to watch. But you've got to think about, the structure of a club like Manchester United under Ineos. If it didn't quite worked for Mauricio Pochettino at Chelsea, where they want to bring in set-piece coaches, and he was said to be against that and a more traditional style of management. Would it work at somewhere like Manchester United, where they're trying to do something similar with their sporting directors and so on? Maybe he'll take a break. He was out of the game for quite a long time after leaving PSG and before joining Chelsea. Opportunities came and went, and he'll like to see himself at that top echelon. And he'll have to make this decision very carefully. In terms of Chelsea, it seems that, they're going to go for one of these newer breed of exciting managers that play a good style of football, an identity. They fit into their structure. They connect with the fan base. They've got a good record of keeping players fit and available and improving players. We've seen similar criteria when Liverpool appointed Arne Slot. So, yeah, I think we'll know pretty soon on Chelsea, but I'm not sure we'll know so soon on Pochettino's future.